There is a city that exists in the spaces most people walk past without noticing. Not a hidden city, exactly. Not magic in the way stories usually mean it. Just a layer of the world that sits very close to the one most people live in, visible from the right angle, at the right hour, to anyone who happens to be small enough, and curious enough, and low enough to the ground to see it properly. Most people never see it at all. This is the story of one morning a small grey cat named Pip wandered into it by accident, and what it cost her and what she found to get back home in time for dinner. Pip belonged in the particular way that cats allow themselves to belong to anyone, to a woman named Mrs. Albright, who lived in a yellow house at the end of a quiet street, and who had named her, 6 years earlier, after the smallest apple on the tree in the back garden. Pip's life had a shape to it, the way most well-loved cats' lives do. Morning sun on the windowsill, a mid-morning nap in the laundry basket, dinner at 6, without fail, in a blue bowl that lived in the same corner of the kitchen it had always lived in. She was by nature not an adventurous cat. She had never gone further than the garden fence. She had certainly never gone past it, but on one particular morning in early spring, the back door had been left open a few inches more than usual, and the morning itself smelled like something Pip didn't have a word for. Green and cold, and full of something moving just out of sight. And before she'd decided to do it, she discovered she already had. She was outside the fence. She did not at first feel anything but curiosity. The street beyond the garden was not the street Pip expected. It looked similar. The same cobblestones, the same lampposts, the same row of houses leaning gently toward each other the way old houses do, but the light was wrong in a way she couldn't name, softer somehow, like morning sun filtered through something she couldn't see. And there were smells in the air that didn't belong to her street. Smells like rain that hadn't fallen yet. Smells like somewhere very old. She was still deciding whether to be alarmed about this when she met Bramble. Bramble was an orange tabby, broad-shouldered and scarred along one ear, the kind of cat who had clearly never lived behind a fence in his life. He sat in the middle of the strange cobblestone street like he owned it, watching Pip with the patient, slightly amused expression of someone who had seen a lot of lost house cats wander into places they didn't understand. "You're new," he said, not a question. Pip admitted that she was lost. She admitted she wasn't sure where here was. Bramble considered this for a moment, the way cats consider most things, unhurried, slightly superior, but not unkind. "This is the understreet," he said, as though that explained everything, which to him it apparently did. "It runs alongside the world, you know. Most don't ever find the seam between them. You must have caught it at the right hour." Pip asked carefully how she might get back to the world she knew. Bramble's tail flicked once, thoughtfully. "That depends," he said, "on whether you're in a hurry or whether you'd like to see something first." Pip had every intention of saying she was in a hurry. What she actually said was that she supposed she had a little time. Bramble led her through streets that kept almost but not quite matching the ones she knew. A bakery that smelled like her own street's bakery, but sold things she'd never seen, golden pastries shaped like curled leaves. A fountain in a square that should have been a parking lot. Somewhere above them, in a sky the same blue as her own sky but deeper somehow, birds moved overhead. Their patterns were too deliberate to belong to ordinary birds. Along the way they collected others, the way small adventures tend to collect company. There was Juniper, a sleek black cat with unsettlingly green eyes, who moved like she'd never once been startled by anything and seemed faintly disappointed by the world's general failure to startle her. She fell into step beside them without being invited, the way cats do when they've decided something is happening and intend to be part of it. There was Thistle, a small nervous calico who flinched at sounds the others didn't seem to hear, and who Pip liked instantly, in the particular way you like someone who reminds you of your own uncertainty. And there was Crumb, an enormous, slow, profoundly unbothered orange and white cat who mostly seemed interested in whatever was about to be eaten, wherever that might be. 4 strays, 1 lost house cat, moving together through a city that wasn't quite the one any of them had grown up beside. But it was Juniper who first mentioned the Hollow Market. She said it the way you mention something you're not supposed to want to go to, too casually, too quickly looking away after she said it. Bramble's ears went back slightly. Thistle made a small sound that wasn't quite a protest. Pip asked what the Hollow Market was. A place that gives you what you're missing, Juniper said, if you're willing to pay for it. Pay with what? Juniper didn't answer that directly. She said only that the market appeared at the centre of the understreet on mornings like this one, mornings with a particular quality of light, and that most sensible cats avoided it, and that she had never claimed to be sensible. Bramble said they shouldn't go. They went anyway, the way you do when one member of the group has already started walking and the rest of you don't want to be left behind. More than you don't want to find out what's there. The Hollow Market did not look dangerous. It looked, if anything, like a particularly nice market. Stalls draped in soft fabric, lantern light even though it was morning, the smell of something sweet baking somewhere close by. Other animals moved between the stalls, not just cats, things Pip didn't have names for, moving at the edges of her vision in ways that made her fur prickle slightly without her understanding why. A vendor at one stall, a thin, long-limbed creature wrapped in a dark shawl, face kept carefully in shadow, looked directly at Pip as they passed and smiled in a way that showed slightly too many teeth and said, in a voice like a held breath, "You're missing something, aren't you, little one? I can feel it on you. Something warm, something you left behind without meaning to." Pip thought immediately, helplessly, of the blue bowl in the kitchen corner, of Mrs. Albright's hands, of dinner at 6. The vendor's smile widened slightly, as though it had heard the thought rather than guessed it. "I could take you there directly," it said. "No walking, no waiting, just a small trade for a small kindness." Bramble stepped between Pip and the stall before she had decided what to say. "We're not trading anything," he said, and his voice had none of the easy amusement it had carried before. "Pip, walk, now." They didn't run exactly. Cats rarely run when they can instead move very quickly while pretending not to be alarmed. But they moved fast, all 5 of them, weaving between stalls and shawled figures, and the strange sweet smell that seemed, the longer they stayed in it, less like baking and more like something trying to make itself seem like baking. Thistle was the one who noticed they'd taken a wrong turn. The street behind the market didn't match anything they'd walked through to get there. The cobblestones had gone uneven, the lampposts further apart, the light dimmer, in a way that had nothing to do with clouds. Crumb, who had been quiet through most of the market, stopped walking entirely and said, in a small voice that didn't suit his size at all, that he didn't think they were in the understreet anymore. He didn't say where he thought they were instead. Nobody asked him to. It was Juniper, oddly, who got them out. Juniper, who had wanted to come to the market in the first place, who seemed to feel the weight of that more than anyone, and who spent the better part of an hour leading them with quiet, focused determination back through streets that kept trying to rearrange themselves when she wasn't looking directly at them. She found the scene by accident, or something that worked like an accident, a particular alley that smelled, faintly, of Pip's own street, of the bakery near Mrs. Albright's house, of cut grass, of something ordinary and real. She stopped at the alley's mouth and put her nose to the air and said, very quietly, that this was the way. Bramble didn't ask how she knew. They walked. The cobblestones became gradually the cobblestones Pip recognised. The light shifted from that soft rongole back toward an ordinary morning. The smells settled into ones she knew the names of. At the garden fence, the 5 of them stopped. Pip didn't know how to say what she wanted to say. She had spent her whole life on one side of one fence, and in the space of a single morning she had learned that the world was larger and stranger and more dangerous than she'd understood, and that she had, against all odds, found 4 friends in the middle of nearly losing herself entirely. She said, eventually, that she didn't know how to thank them. Bramble said she didn't need to. He said it in the same easy, slightly amused tone he'd used at the very beginning, as though the market and the wrong streets and the thing in the shawl had already folded themselves into a story rather than a thing that had actually happened to them an hour ago. Juniper said nothing, but she didn't leave first. Thistle said, very quietly, that she was glad Pip had been there. Pip didn't entirely understand what she meant by that, but she understood the tone well enough not to ask. Crumb said he hoped there'd be fish at dinner, which made everyone laugh, including, after a moment, Thistle. Pip slipped back through the fence as the light was turning toward afternoon. The garden looked exactly as she'd left it. The yellow house stood exactly where it always stood. Somewhere inside, as she could hear Mrs. Albright humming something to herself in the kitchen, the hum that meant dinner preparations had begun. She did not tell anyone where she had been. She had no way to, and she suspected, even if she had, that it wasn't the kind of thing that translated well into the world on this side of the fence. But that evening, eating from the blue bowl in the familiar corner of the kitchen, she found herself glancing every so often toward the gap beneath the fence, not with fear and not quite with longing, but with the quiet awareness of someone who now knew that the world she lived in had a seam in it, somewhere close by, and that on the other side of that seam, 4 friends were probably, at that exact moment, having dinner of their own. She has gone back since, not often, not recklessly, but on certain mornings when the light through the kitchen window has that particular soft quality and the back door happens to be left open a few inches more than usual, Mrs. Albright will look up from her tea to find the blue bowl empty and the garden gate swinging gently, and she will smile to herself and not worry because somehow she has come to understand that Pip always finds her way home by dinner. Once closing the back door at dusk, she could have sworn she saw 4 pairs of eyes watching from just beyond the garden fence, patient and unblinking in the fading light. When she looked again, they were gone. She has never mentioned it to anyone. She isn't entirely sure how she would. Dark hour, sit back, listen, drift off.